Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it.
I think I saw Luke Lemons was asking for Windows. Does anybody have any old Windows? And I thought, I think one of my old computers, I can probably get you a Windows 95 if you'd like.
I know. I love these people that are just clinging on to the old operating systems. It's over. We're all with the push button transmission didn't work. You got to select.
That's like whose was it? I was just re-listening to one of our shows the other day. I don't remember which one it was, but it was I went and operated over at Doug Taylor's, and I was talking about how I had to help fire up his DOS computer system to run the layout before the session.
See, you were listening to one of the old ones because you're never on the new ones.
I know.
What is that all about? What's that all about? You got fans,
I know. I have fans. I've got fans all over the world, and then there's people that really like me too.
Yes. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about the ProtoThrottle. The ProtoThrottle. That's what we're going to talk about because Shane is reviewing one of them for Model Railroad News. And we have Shane the Young Gun, Mr. Energy, Mr. What's Happening, and Tony Cook, editor of Model Railroad News. And we're recording this the day after we did Virtual Hobby Shop 13, which I'm referring to as the NMRA insurance liability fiasco.
Oh my gosh! And I missed the show.
Yeah,
I didn't get to be a part of it. And boy, it sounds like it was. Maybe it's a good thing that I wasn't there.
The second
we both missed it. I heard it was a blowout.
Yeah, it was a blowout. Bruce, the mailboy, had a meltdown.
Oh no!
Yeah, but other than that, it went pretty good. We were arguing about insurance, and I made the point about the NMRA has so much administration. Like, how can it have so much administration for such a small organization? But that's neither here nor there. It was still fun because then after there was that awkward moment of silence around the 48-minute mark when everybody suddenly realized it was being recorded.
Yeah.
And then after the awkward moment of silence, we all went back to our old cells and had a grand old time for another hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, well, I can't wait to hear that one. Wow. That'll make for a good road trip listening.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quality listening time. I've already started editing it. I'm kind of excited to hear it myself.
I know I was there, but this is going to be better the second time. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so now I think this would be a Shane show. Tony, would this not be a Shane show?
Oh, I think this would definitely be a Shane show. Most certainly.
Yeah. It's a Shane show because Shane is reviewing the ProtoThrottle X2000. What's it called?
It's just the ProtoThrottle.
Just the ProtoThrottle.
I know, no fancy acronyms or numbers in this one. I'm sorry, Lionel.
Already
does not.
Yeah, first one out of the gate. I don't think it has any kind of special name, number, moniker.
Yeah, it already lost Lionel's good seal.
Yeah,
good
exactly.
railroading seal of approval.
Yeah, it lost me already. It's called the ProtoThrottle for Realistic Control Stand Throttle. Introducing the most realistic throttle for operating model diesel locomotives. With the ProtoThrottle, modelers can operate just like a real engineer because the controls feel and perform just like the prototype. So, Shane, is that pretty much the way it is?
And boy, if that isn't true, I tell you what, I let's see, I got this Monday, which would have been a week ago from when we're recording this.
Okay.
A week and some, and every time I come home, it's like the first thing I pick up.
Or is it that cool?
It is, especially when you pair it up with like one of these ESU decoders or one of these Soundtrax decoders. It just makes running too much fun. I put a little video up on my my install page of it, just moving back and forth, and I'm working on getting a full video review of it. I just need to go downstairs and set up all the background and whatnot to do it. But I mean, it's just a fun product. It makes running so much more enjoyable, and really, it adds a lot of the prototypical feel and a lot of the prototypical weight in terms of like your momentum and whatnot to the locomotives as well.
Oh yeah, and it says here already the price is reduced. They haven't even sold one yet, and the price is reduced.
Mm-hmm.
How come?
So I'm not sure where or how long, but if you go to the website right now, which would be www.ProtoThrottle.com,
Is that
you can
hang on? Is that www.ProtoThrottle.com?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. That was rude of me to interrupt.
So now that we've gone through this twice, anyways, we just really want to make sure everybody knows where they're going.
Right.
No, you can sign up on the website for. It's not. It's an advanced registration for one, but it does not mean you have to buy one. But if you register now, I think they're trying to get a feel for how many of these people actually want. But if you register now, you automatically lock in a discount price of $449.
Right.
For the throttle. When
So-
it was, I think it was
It
just
was-
shy of 500. And now there's a new list price of 482.
482. Yeah. It was
so you're
499,
still saving a
482.
little money there.
So
About
how do you come up with 482? See, now if that was me and it was my business, it would have to be 482.36.
36. Yeah.
How do you
Okay.
come up with 482?
I would imagine they've just got a spinner wheel, kind of like on Wheel of Fortune. They walk up. All right, Scott Thornton, spin that wheel. 482. That's your list price.
They seem poor old Scott Thornton, who we've both met and we've both
Yes.
talked to, and is a lovely man.
Mhm.
Seems terrified about selling this thing, and I keep thinking, buddy, you better be ready, because when this thing catches on, it's going to be like a wildfire in a Florida dairy farm. It's going to like spread like hot like across hot grass, it's gonna be hotter than tar on a Georgia highway.
Wow. He's working the analogies.
Yeah,
It's going to be
Heavy
better
tonight.
than any one of these statements Lionel can come up with right now.
yeah, exactly. It's
Exactly.
Let's just simplify this. Take the short road here.
It's gonna be hotter than a cat on a roof.
Mm.
So then it's
Hang on, is that a Peter Borchert poke?
yeah, that might be yeah, that's right,
Did you
Peter
see-
Borchert. Yeah,
he did get his cat stuck up on the roof.
yeah. I think he put it up there with his drone.
With his drone, just he's got a little retractable claw. It's just like
Yeah.
the claw game at Walmart, just bigger.
Yeah, he's been practicing being an Amazon delivery guy. So he just grabbed the nearest thing, which was his cat. I bet you his cat's name is like Muffin or something like that. So okay. So it says, please note, due to regulatory reasons, the ProtoThrottle will only be available for sale to customers in the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and not in Saskatchewan. No, I didn't. I just added that part. So what? So does it? What it says it currently supports the DC systems for NCE lens with ESU cab control coming soon. So what? How does it work? Explain it to me, because I'm very confused.
Okay, so that section actually really needs to be updated because there's actually quite a bit that this throttle covers. So pretty much when you look at this, you've got two parts to your system. You've got the throttle itself and then a receiver, which I'll have to get you a photo, but it I think it's just an Arduino with a receiver module that connects to it.
Right.
And the receiver pretty much gets signal from the throttle. The Arduino computes that and then transmits it to your system. So you have to purchase both of these parts, the throttle and the receiver. The throttle is $482 if you don't reserve now, $450 if you do. The receiver is another $99.
Okay, so you need some sort of a receiver. It must be pretty small, is it?
Yeah, it's not. Hang on, I'll get you an actual measurement. While we're live on the air, it's about 4 inches by maybe 2.
Okay.
It's a little 4x2 on a 3D printed base. You could screw it to the side of your command station or something to that effect. But
Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't go in a locomotive. It just goes near the command station.
yes. So
Okay.
this receiver just sits out. I mean, it's just a little board. It kind of looks like a block occupancy piece of circuitry or something.
Okay, right.
So pretty much what you do is they have two different receivers. One receiver plugs directly into NCE and lens through the bus cables. The other receiver is a Wi-Fi receiver, which is what I have right now. So that works with your ESU cab control, your Digitrax Wi-Fi module, or your JMRI. And that's how they kind of backdoor to doing all of the DCC systems through JMRI. But it's really actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be when I got mine. I took it out of the box, set it up, and there's a little SD card in the side of the on the side of the circuit board on your receiver. You pull that out, plug it into your computer, and there's a little text file you pop up. And in that text file, you log your Wi-Fi name and the password into that text file. Pull it out of the computer, put it into the receiver, and within about 30 seconds, as long as you've typed everything correctly to say, but within about 30 seconds, your receiver module will connect to your Wi-Fi into your command base. So ESU cab control and the Digitrax Wi-Fi module both have their own localized Wi-Fi for the system. So that allows me to connect, and it would look just like your Wi-Fi at home. So, if you had, so like mine just says ESU cab control when I pop it up, but I can connect like my phone or my computer and I can run trains off of that Wi-Fi to my system.
Okay.
So that receiver pretty much does the same thing. It just picks up your Wi-Fi name and your password, logs itself right into your DCC system or your home internet if you're running JMRI through your computer, and then starts talking to it that way.
All right. I think this would be a fair question. And Tony, correct me if I'm wrong. Please.
Why'd you have to add please? Did you not think that? I mean, I listening to these podcasts, I think a lot of people try to correct you a lot. In fact, I think people should lay off a little bit. But anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
Okay, Shane, you know me pretty well now, and you know my level of electronic.
Oh, I feel where this one's going.
Yeah, you know my level of. We've worked with electronics. We've worked with the Zoom H5. You've got me going on that. There was some gnashing of teeth and some hair pulling at the beginning. So, so realistically, knowing me as you do, would it be hard for me to get it going?
No, I think you could probably get it.
Yeah.
With the directions that they've also included with a throttle are very clear in terms of setting it up.
Okay, so now that gets a high five. That gets a high five for me, because if somebody if somebody includes good instructions, that I'm pumped. I'm going to work harder on the thing if the instructions are good, because that makes all the difference in the world. Like if they leave out step 3 and they just because they figure you should know how to upgrade your Windows system or something. But if they give you good instructions, I'm all for that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool
on electronics. That you get lost quick if it's like, well, what do they mean by that? It's like, well, I can't make it work now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they do a really good job, because they give you they give you 2 packets of paper for different what am I trying to say? They give you 2 different manuals is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And one of them stapled together is nothing but setting it up and getting it ready, or getting it up to running.
Right.
And then the other one is walking you through all the menus and how it works and everything like that.
Okay, so one is they're
very clear about what does what.
Well, that's very cool. Then that makes me. So then I'm. Why are these guys? We need to. You know what? We need to make it our own personal mission to sell like 1,000 of these for these guys. We need to see these guys running around, at the Kansas City train show, high-fiving everybody.
Well, now that I've talked to them, we will see them in Kansas City. I was talking to
thank goodness.
Scott a while back, and he said that they weren't even looking at Kansas City yet. And I told him by not coming to Kansas City, it would be a complete missed opportunity.
Yes.
And because he said he was still looking at the Chicago RPM, or he had table space at Chicago and St. Louis RPMs, but he asked me if I thought Kansas City would be a show worth going to, and I said, for the sake of having all your vendors, everybody who is anybody, so all your Ken Patterson type folks. But I mean, the amount of coverage that you would get in that time alone.
Oh yeah,
Especially because Kansas City is such a centralized location. I mean, for everybody.
absolutely.
It's so much easier for everybody to come to Kansas City, than Orlando, Florida. So some of the guys on the West Coast would be kind of, But I said, the attendance is looking good. I said Kansas City would just be a complete missed opportunity, especially because this product is supposed to come out like a month or two before Kansas City.
Oh, really?
Yes. My understanding is it's supposed to be sometime this summer.
Wow. So they must, like Kansas City is a must. I was trying to talk them into going to Springfield because they're saying you're going to see so many people there.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, buddy, I know you're listening to this because I told you about it. So, come on, this is gonna be really popular. Just go for it. And I although I think you should have priced it at $483, but that's just me.
Shane, talk about, now we both, I think, with the first time you got to handle it, the same place I did, St. Louis at the RPM last summer. But I think the thing that got me the most was you talked about how it has the feel of the weight of the locomotive, but handling, because the throttles, obviously they're miniature in size compared to the real thing of a control stand on like a diesel. But talk about that feel of pulling like the horn, lever, and because that to me was the thing that felt so cool, is even though it was small, it did have that feeling. It was something more than pressing buttons or turning knobs on a typical power pack. That, it did have that, in a toyish way, feel like I'm running a diesel, because here I'm pulling the thing to make the horn go. Here's the thing to notch over and to run 8. It was like, wow, this is just like, being behind the real thing. But talk about how the feel of the controls, and isn't the case metal?
The faceplate is metal. The case is 3D printed plastic.
Plastic. Okay. Yeah.
But no, like you were saying, I think this whole thing just brings so much more realism, and especially the physics behind it and the weight. When you crank up that momentum on the decoder, one of the things I've really enjoyed is I've been working with the new ESU 73100s, which is a new board that they brought out that fits in all in scale, which is fantastic. But I finished a GP38 and was playing with it. And you crank up momentum on that, and you take it up to notch 4, and it takes a little bit to build up to that speed. And then you can take it back down to idle. Your prime mover comes back down to idle, but your train will just coast until you put those brakes on. I mean, the physics behind it, it just makes it feel so much more real when you can bring it down to idle, and that train will just keep coasting.
And
it'll gradually slow down, but
there's skill to that. I mean, we're used to, you think you're operating with like a regular throttle or a power pack, where even if they have a brake or momentum switch, that you think you're doing that. But like when I played with that, what was that little switching layout they had, was maybe about the size of a good 8-foot table or something. And
about that.
They had like a Jeep on that and handed me the thing. And of course, I immediately basically almost ran it off the table, because I started it up and it did not immediately take off like I expected. It did it like a real locomotive would. They're not drag racing here, so they don't jump out of the starting gate. And then, as I slowed it down, it's like, why isn't it stopping? It's like, well, you didn't hit the brake. And it's like, oh, and I'm trying to brake and the thing's hitting the bumper on the end of the track. It suddenly was like, wow, I can't do this. Or, it's like this is the neat part of it would be that, it's more than just, a handheld power pack of this is forward, this is reverse, there's all the way up and all the way down on the speed. That suddenly it is like you're really doing this. You see the skill element of, well, how fast do I need to go to come out of this turnout, and then I got to brake before I, bump into the next row of hoppers in front of me. That I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, I've caught myself a couple times. I've just set up a couple switches here of some. I got a box of that Atlas 65 True Track, but I set up some switches and was playing with it, and I found myself a lot. You'll start in, making a run, get up to notch 4, crank it back down, coast in, lay on those brakes and come up a little early. You'll roll the brakes off and kick it back up to notch 1 or 2 just to give it a little kick again, and then brake. You find yourself adjusting to it. And I think just like anything, there's a little bit of a learning curve, and you can definitely adjust how quickly you stop as well with the momentum. But I mean, it's just it's too cool to actually have to sit there and kind of work out the weight of your train, and they've actually got a meter in the throttle itself that you can change from engine light train, medium train, and heavy train. So you can actually increase that physics as well, just within the throttle. I mean, there's a whole a whole menu of things. And one of the other things I really enjoy about this throttle is the level of customization you can get. You can set to the thresholds for all of it. So you can set how far down you have to pull that horn lever before the horn actually activates. So if you don't want to have to come all the way down, if you just want to be able to pull down a little bit, I mean, it's just a really open product.
And how does it do that on a computer program?
No. So the board is outfitted with potentiometers. That's my understanding of it.
Right.
And what they do is they monitor where exactly that lever is in regards to numbers, I would assume, in degrees of rotation.
Okay, so like you said, you can set it for the way you want it to be. So how would you set the horn handle to the way you want it to work?
So I set my preference, or for my horn handle, my preference is about halfway down.
Okay. And
that way,
and where
if I get a little bit of finger on it, it comes on. If I get all the way down, it's going to come on regardless.
Okay, and where did you set that? How did you set it? On the actual throttle, on the computer?
On the throttle itself. So there's 4 buttons next to the LCD display.
Right.
And if you push the upper left here, it goes into a set of menus. And you can just sit here and shuffle through them all. And somewhere at the back, there's a threshold menu. And then you press the lower left, and then you can go into setting all that stuff.
Okay, so would this be a fair statement? It's somewhat similar to the Zoom H5 with its menus and stuff. And you would have to run me through it about 4 or 5 times before I'd finally get it, which is what happened when we were working with the Zoom H5. You'd say, press this button. And I'd be going, I did press it. And you go, well, not that many times.
I think I would have to walk through it maybe once or twice. But again, the actual throttle manual does a really good job about talking through every single menu.
Well, that's cool.
And you can go to the front of that, that I'm looking at the manual myself here. You can go to the front of it, and it's got a menu, or it's got a page for each menu. So it's not just kind of like gives a brief description of what each page on the menu does. It walks you through exactly what each menu does and how to get to it, the buttons to push, what you're doing. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and it's very, very clear. And that's one of the things I was afraid of with when you get a piece of technology like this that's this sophisticated in terms of what it can do versus, just a throttle knob and set your locomotive. That was one of the things I was really worried about, was people coming new to the hobby, or maybe somebody who's just getting into DCC picking one of these up. But I mean, I had this picked up. I mean, granted, I played with it in St. Louis. Now, I didn't go through any of the menus.
Right.
I just sat there and ran it back and forth. But, I mean, within an hour, I was I was setting locomotive addresses and saving them and changing settings and whatnot. I mean, the manual for this is very clear and very easy to walk through. It shows you what all the buttons next to the LCD display will do if you click them. So they've done a very good job about thinking through the process of how to work this thing.
That's pretty cool. So, and if some plastic locomotives now are getting upwards of $400, so $470 or 82. I find that a very odd number. Scott, I'm struggling with that one, buddy. Either go $479 or $499 or $459, like at $482.
He's using that often used microtrains approach where they'll be like, $24.85 for a boxcar or something. And that's cool because they're basically telling you, okay, well, this with this many colors and this much printing, and this is, a plain brown boxcar is $19, and this is going to be $26 because we got to do 2 or 3 passes of pad printing. So I would guess the 482 really, that's honestly probably what he can figure out he can sell it for.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think they'll have that much trouble selling them. I mean, people say that model railroaders are cheap. I don't believe that. If it's something they want, they'll pay for it.
Exactly. Yeah. And this has such a cool feel to it. Did you find, Shane, in testing it so far, like the headlight knobs? I was curious. It shows both, and I assume because this replicates a real diesel, the off, dim, bright, and ditch lights, but there's knobs on the left for rear and the right for the front headlights. Does that all with just a regular DCC equipped, say Athearn or Atlas model, it'll do all that stuff with the knobs without doing any programming that it responds?
I would have to play with some other decoders to see. I need to break out. Because I've only been playing with my DCC sound. I need to break out just one of my regular DCC locomotives, which this throttle will still work with in terms of calculating your speed steps and running it out. But I did put one of them up here, and it does work. Now, the locomotive I had up here, I've changed the function mapping to my preference. It wasn't a standard function mapping. But I believe if you have a right-out-of-the-box decoder with a standard function mapping, they should all be in place to work correctly.
That's nice. What is the auxiliary button? At the top right, there's the horn handle. Is the auxiliary button something you can program for a special feature like a roof beacon?
Yeah, so there's a lot of options in terms of what you can do. You can change, and it's in the preferences menu. If I look at it, I'll know exactly which one it is. But you can change exactly what each button is for. It's in the configuration functions menu. So you can set whatever button you want. That button up at the top is supposed to be a dynamic brake alternate. Pretty much it just brings on your dynamic brakes for, I think, ESU. It's in the right spot. But you can change it in that configurations menu. The two buttons on the right side of the LCD display are auxiliary functions as well. So, it can be F5 and F6 if you wanted your compressors and then a beacon. Oh. And then you can set those to whether they'd be momentary on, so as long as you have it pushed, they're on, or you can have them to where they're toggle on. To where if you push it, it stays on until you push it again and it comes off. But that's the nice thing about this is you can set any of these buttons to whatever you want through that configurations menu.
And did we cover, you said what it's compatible with, but I don't know if we actually said, so if you get one of these and you bring it home, it's like, okay, does it connect to track? Do I plug it in? Explain that part that, you basically, like you've got the ESU cab control. I have the Pico version of that same. We'd need both of those. We'd have to have an operating system like that. As you talked about it links into the Wi-Fi to work with those. Yeah.
So pretty much when you get the box, you'll open it up. You'll have the receiver, the throttle, and then a couple of bags of cords and whatnot. And there's a little USB power cord, kind of looks like what your phone charger would look like. Power cord that goes to the receiver, and then that's it. And then what you would do is, like I said, there's that SD card on the side. You pull it out, plug it into your computer, and then there's a text file. And they talk about this all on the the getting started. Why can't I ever think of these? The getting started manual. It shows you exactly where to put your Wi-Fi and everything in. Then you just plug that SD card back into the side of the receiver and then plug the power cord into it. And then within about 30 seconds or so is what I've noticed, it'll connect to whatever Wi-Fi system you have it logged to.
Nice.
So you said, okay, I'm sorry, Tony, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask one other thing on what have you had as far as battery life? Have you had it on long enough to see how long it goes till it needs recharging? Or do you leave it plugged? Can you leave it plugged in with the USB while you're operating?
No, it's totally wireless. Takes two AA batteries in the back of the throttle, so you have to take. Excuse me.
Are you taking a drink? Are you gonna?
I'm just over here dying. Pardon me for a moment.
Are you passing it? Jeez, you're turning. He's starting to turn blue. Tony, do something. Tony, do something.
He's choked up at how cool this product is.
I'm just so excited by this product.
Tony, Tony, do something.
Lionel, that's one of the neatest things about knowing Shane is showing up at his house with like one of these samples or whatever, and it is suddenly like, oh wow, look at this.
I know that's one of the cool things about Shane. Period.
I mean that because again that's how I see that stuff of it's like a kid at Christmas of look what they announced or wow look what's in this new catalog, and it's fun to see somebody else that has that same wow I can't wait to get this open.
Exactly. I don't care if Shane moves to Botswana. I'm coming to his wedding. I don't care if you move to the middle of the desert. I'm coming to your wedding.
Well, trust me, you're more than welcome.
I don't care if you move to some remote village in Tibet, and it's a 3-day trip. I'm coming to your wedding.
I'm starting to think it doesn't matter if he's more than welcome.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
What you got to be prepared for, though, Lionel, is after he's married and has a house, you're going to have to give in and help build the N-scale Montana rail link.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And I'm ready to do it.
Yeah, me too.
In fact, I'm already looking at some N-scale diesels. That way, it's like I got some stuff to take over to run. So
okay, okay. Here's the deal for the Kansas City convention. I'm already getting ready for the disappointment in his face when by the end of the second day I go, I'm wiped. And he's going to go, but we got 14 other things to do. And I'm going to go, I'm 64 years old.
What stopped you so far?
Yeah, it's true. So it's cool.
Okay,
This thing is cool. It's just. That's what I said to Scott. And when I said to him, I said, "Oh, how many you open to sell?" And he was like, for 100. And I'm thinking, if they get it out there, they're gonna sell them because, like, if you're operating, is it going to be one of those things where you're operating the locomotive and you can't get the locomotive to stop, or is it fairly straightforward and you hit the brake and the thing does stop and like the momentum doesn't take over and take the fun out of operating?
No, so I did talk to Brett Overholtzer here in Kansas City, and they had this up in Des Moines when he went up there to go operate, and he was playing with it up there, and he said the same thing, that they had too much momentum and it took away from operating. So I think there's definitely a fine-tuning you have to do in terms of finding that right amount of realisticness versus that, too much of, there it's going off the end of the layout. Oh, there it goes.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely one of those things. One of the other things is this is definitely a two-handed operation.
Right.
Or another thing we were talking about is if you were to mount this to your fascia, because you could take that back box off and just mount this right to your fascia, say at a yard or a small industry where that one job works, continuously. It's kind of tough because, like I said, it's really a two-handed operation, or at least, you have to have at least one hand occupied holding it, which wouldn't be any worse than really a throttle would.
Sure, I understand.
I'm trying to think. A handful of people enjoy just running NCE or like the Digitrax out of one hand, but usually I've got one hand holding a throttle, and then my other hand is twisting a knob and holding the uncoupling pick. And if I need to, I can set the pick down and do car card. For me, I don't have that huge issue. Now, it is a little thicker than a normal throttle. I wouldn't say it's much taller or wider. So in terms of setting it down on something, but the other thing is like it takes a little bit more focus than just twisting a knob, though. So I would really see this. I think this product would excel in two-man operations and a dedicated switch jobs. If it was just one switch job that went off and worked on its own for a session and then came back at the end of a session and never bothered anybody, I think this product would be cool. Or if you had a job that was, say it took about 40 minutes on your layout and you were looking to make that job longer.
Yeah.
I think this would be a great tool to use to increase the amount of time it would take to run that job.
Or I was thinking if you had a switching layout, like a 20-foot by 2-foot switching layout around the walls of a particular room, and it wasn't a multi-operator layout, it would be fun to have this to make that switching layout just that much more enjoyable.
Exactly.
Oh, you could hand this to somebody and they'd be there for hours. That's like I was playing the other night and I had a little 4-track mini yard set up on my desk, and I think it took me the better part of maybe 20-something minutes to get all 4 of my boxcars condensed down to one track.
Yeah.
But
the going back and forth.
That's that neat thing, though. That's that skill. And like I've never done RC airplanes and such, but I've seen people messing with those, or even some of the higher end radio controlled like cars and race cars. And you can tell that, your first thought is, I can do this. And then they crash the airplane immediately. It's like, no, there's a little skill to make, the ups and downs with the 2 little throttle things. And I think it brings some of that to railroading that, again, we never had. You don't have that feel in the throttle, whether you're pushing buttons or turning knobs, that this gives you. It is that, well, it's not going to respond exactly like a push button DCC control or a knob on a DC pack. That, again, this is more that, I think I can land this plane. Let me, bring the whatever's down. And it's like that. Yeah.
Well, and I saw...
I think the... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when I was at the RPM meet, both Matt Herman from ESU and George Bogatuk from Soundtracks, they were all over it. They thought it was great.
The one thing I really enjoy, and it brings the most... I think it brings the rail fan out in me, is what it is. But one of my favorite jobs to watch here in Kansas City, just because when I get off work, before they became a first shift job, they used to be second shift, so they started right when I got off work. But there used to be a job that worked down off of Hickory and Union in the West Bottoms, and I'm trying to think of what the job. Oh, it's the Kaw River Bridge job. And Tony, I think you know what I'm talking about here. They worked that backside over to State Line. They use they used to use MP15s. Now they use a GP38, and I think it makes me think of that job when I run this 38 that I have, because when you watch the real thing, they'll kick up the throttle and then they'll take off and then they'll get going a bit and then they'll crank that throttle back down, and it's the same thing. It brings so much of that prototype feel, especially when you add a sound decoder to the mix. I've been playing with my road power and my switching power with this thing, and I think the switching power is a little bit more responsive to it just for switching, but it just brings so much more of that feel of standing trackside while guys are actually switching. When you've got that throttle that kicks up and then back down, and then a 2-notch kick right quick just to keep them going a little bit, and I don't know, it just brings so much more realism for me.
So I got 2 questions, but you're not finished, so carry on.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, so if you click on the website, if you click on user manual, and then you scroll down the first, there's like 6 pages of the manual, give you a rough idea. There's 3 images of the 3 guys, Scott Thornton, Michael Peterson, and Nathan Holmes.
Okay.
How close do you think those renditions of those guys are?
The Michael Scott, the Scott Thornton, it's pretty close. I don't feel like his head's quite as tall.
Okay.
He doesn't quite have that kind of that forehead real estate. You almost sell those billboard space. I don't think he's quite got that tall head. The Michael Peterson one's pretty dang close, though.
Oh, is it?
And I didn't get a good look at Nathan Holmes, so I couldn't tell you on that one. But the Michael Peterson one's pretty dang close.
So Michael Peterson's got a nice head of hair, then.
Yes, he does.
Okay.
And Nathan Holmes, you put a goatee on him, that could be me.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly.
And did you didn't catch a slip there, Lionel? But he said Michael Scott.
Yeah.
Shane and Brooke have been watching NBC's The Office. He told me binge watching. So yeah. And isn't that what's his name's character? Am I right? Michael Scott was the boss in the first few seasons of the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company.
So
yes, 1 through 7.
Yeah, so when you binge watch, you watch it at like triple speed or something. Like, when do you have time to binge watch anything?
Exactly.
And I think Scott Thornton's a little puffier than his rendition here on the.
We need these. How come we don't have these little?
Yeah, I wonder where we could get these. These are perfect.
We need little AML.
Yeah.
Bobbleheads like this would be awesome.
We could.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, even if we just got these on our website.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we can hold their throttle hostage till they reveal where they got those.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Who did those? Yeah, we need those before we give you back the throttle.
Yeah. And why do we think we're giving it back?
I don't know. This is a beta one.
Yeah, it's still it's a beta.
Oh, okay. So it's not as good. We were going to.
So this is the one that's been sent around. It's been... I'm trying to think who else had it. There's been a good number of guys who have had it ahead of me. There's a fella down in Springfield. I can't recall his name, but I saw him. He had it a couple weeks back. So I'm not sure if I have to send this one back or if I'm not sure.
I think Joe Fugate was using it on his layout at Springfield.
Yeah, they sent him one to have there in Springfield. I know there's been 3 or 4 guys that have had it between Springfield and me, because I know they've got a couple of videos on their website of some of the guys running it too.
I think I made Joe mad at Springfield when I was kidding around saying I'd give him $500 for his layout. And then I sent Joe Cumming. Then I was going to
say, and you sent somebody over there, to say here's the best. Here's the best he'll do.
Yeah. Joe, I was just kidding, buddy. It was a beautiful layout. And my other question is not necessarily related to this particular product. Is they say they want you to sign up to buy one to give them an idea. And when I was talking to Shane Wilson at Scale Trains, I try to get his name. I try to get scaletrains.com into every conversation. Not that I'm on the take, but if he offered it to me, I certainly would be. He does, they do reservations without money too. And this seems to be the way of the industry now. Can you explain that to me, Tony, seeing as how you're deep in the industry?
I mean, a lot of them do. And some of them like Factory Direct Trains, I think does a penny thing to reserve. But like the last time I reserved something there, I think it was Broadway Limited GM&O EA units. I don't think I ever saw the penny charge. I think, will there really be a penny charge for the reservation? And I don't remember seeing that. So I think they didn't charge anything. I don't think, and the same with like Train World, you can reserve things there, and there's no.
Yeah, and that's
I think you give them a card and it's going to charge when the product's available. And like Scale Trains, I think sends out heads up emails, and I think I got the same from Factory Direct that said, "Hey, this will be shipping next week. Just to let you know it's going to process, etc."
Oh, I see. So see, I didn't understand. So when you reserve something from ScaleTrains.com, you give them your credit card information.
That might be. I'm not sure on it. I know that like with Train World and like Factory Direct, that's how that one goes. But yeah, and this one though, this is just as Shane said. This is just give us your name, let us know you're interested. This is just a feeler for, hey, if we made this, would you buy one? Not you're committed to it. We'll be knocking on your door, with it under our arm. So yeah, this is just, hey, let us know.
We got to encourage these guys to think of this as a positive and not a negative, because they seem terrified that nobody's going to buy them, and I don't think that that's the case.
Well, and I think, the other thing, too, if anybody's wondering on, who's this company and where it's coming from, I don't know if Shane mentioned, but Iowa Scaled Engineering, who's a well-established company, and they're in Colorado Springs. So somehow they slid from Iowa all the way across like Nebraska, part of Kansas, and then into Colorado at some point. I think they actually went to college. Is that maybe what that is? Do you remember, Shane, those guys were maybe college in Iowa or from Iowa?
I'm not sure exactly. Yeah. I'm not... That's a great question. I know Scott got associated with those guys for the sake of helping him with the electronic side, but I don't recall how exactly they ended up in Colorado, though.
So
they're in.
I would assume they packed their stuff into a truck and drove there, but I'm not quite sure beyond that.
But they're behind ProtoThrottle as well, aren't they? Well, they're helping get it to market. Yeah.
Yeah, they're behind a lot of the electronic stuff, as well as a lot of other really great products too. Just scrolling through their website, they've got a lot of other good stuff.
I think it's time. I think it's time we interviewed those guys.
I would second that.
Yeah. Which would make it 15,483 people.
I was going to say, how long is that list now?
Yeah. It's retarded. I should have never ever have started this podcast. and after everybody hears what I'm going to refer to in the future as the great insurance ruckus of not 18.
Oh, man. I'm glad I was driving and not able to participate, I think,
Well, it was fun. I loved the part. Like I said, around the 48-minute mark, there was that moment of, uncomfortable silence when everybody's going, oh, I think we were just fighting. All right, so we're giving this thing 2 thumbs up. Now, we can't really... you don't really... I don't think you've come up with any negatives about it, have you?
No, the battery life is fantastic. It's super customizable. The battery life is fantastic. Holds a pile of locomotives, so you don't have to keep entering locomotives in. They've got a saved menu. You can go and find the ones you've already put in.
Okay, so what if you have a couple of locomotives, MU'd? How does that work?
You would just pick your leader out of that consist.
Okay, all right.
So if you've got 1, 2, and 3, not that you can actually use those numbers in DCC, but so you got 1, 2, and 3, and you MU them in that order. You MU 2 and 3 to 1. You would just go through and pick up 1 on your ProtoThrottle and then take off with them.
Again, fairly self-explanatory. Good instructions.
Very, very good instructions. Very clear. Every little menu's written out. It tells you exactly what each button does. I had this thing picked up in less than an hour, up and running in less than 15 minutes.
Wow. Just cool. Just a cool idea. It's like we've referred to it several times during this show only because it's something we have in common, but it's like that Zoom H5 where I do the on-the-road recordings. The digital world is so cool now, and they can do so much with it. These guys have.
Mm-hmm.
It's just cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it like I said, it's a cool way to run trains, and it brings so much more to the table than just a knob in terms of how it feels and the physics to it, the feeling of it, the sound of it. Everything just becomes so much more accurate to the real world. It feels like you're actually there.
Perfect. And remember, if 483 was just a bit too much for your pocketbook, you're in luck. It's 482.
Oh, what a deal! There's
What
the
a
clincher.
steal!
There's
What a
the
steal!
clincher.
I'm buying 9 of them just because of that.
That is what's wrong with me having a podcast. Because the first question I'm going to ask them next is, so what's the deal with the 482?
It's cool. It's neat. I've seen it. I played with it. But okay, here's what's really keeping me up at night.
Yeah.
Where'd you get 42?
Yeah.
You know what the second question will be after he hears that? And no change?
Yeah, and no change. Like, why not 482.36? What's going on? How do you come to it? Like, is it? Here's what I would say. Was it really 481.72 and you just thought you'd pocket the extra 28 cents? I don't have too much time on my hands. All right, we've killed like 45 minutes. That's good. It's a Shane show. I think we should call it a night. And go ahead, Shane. Give out our email address.
If you'd like to get a hold of us, you can get a hold of us at modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelerslife, like what did you?
One L.
I haven't done
one
this in
L
so
like
long.
railroad.
One L like railroad, not 2 L's like Lionel
Or Kelly.
or Kelly.
Or liability.
No, that's-
or actually, Tom Jacobs came up last night with not 2 L's like liability. Poor old Tom Jacobs was pulling his hair out, going like...
Or you give you 1 L like ProtoThrottle and not 2 L's like Lionel.
Yeah, there you go.
Ooh,
Exactly.
There you go. That's very
I had a really good thing I was going to say. Oh, yeah, I'll put this on the free channel so that we'll give them as much publicity as they can possibly get.
cool. And Shane, did you mention you've got videos on Brakeman 17?
I'm working on one right now. It's not up as we speak, but depending on when Lionel puts this up, it may be up.
And they have 2 videos on their own website at www.ProtoThrottle.com.
Can you believe that he's knocking our Midwestern saying W instead of W, and he says a boot? Now, come on.
They also say Z too, which
what
is
is
Z
Z?
for us. Z for us.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Camaro Z28.
Say it's Z. I don't know where you got ZED.
I don't know.
Then again, I guess I can see where you don't know where we got ZEE.
Exactly, and I wasn't there. I wasn't part of it. Here's my entire. I based my entire life off this particular, and I'm convinced that this is the case. How we ended up in Canada, north of the Great Lakes, is when they were divvying up the land for North America. The Canadian guys were standing with the American guys somewhere in South Carolina in June. It was a beautiful day, and the guy is saying, "No, you take all that land north of the Great Lakes. It's like this. It's just like this all year round, and you'll be good." And we're Canadian. We're going, "Oh, okay, if you say so." Yeah. It's just like this. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. And yet we're still shoveling. We have a website, modelerslife.com. And if you go there, you can see links to our Facebook page and our Patreon page. If you'd like more than what you've heard here, you can go to Patreon and pony up $5 a month, and you can get a whole bunch more of Shane and Tony and everybody. And Tony has his AML product news, which is very popular. See that, Tony? You know what? Your product news shows that even though I have a Buick-sized ego, I am more concerned about the listener than I am about myself, because everybody loves your product news show.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
It's very cool. It's fun to do.
And
Oh,
go ahead. I don't want to interrupt Tony.
No,
here,
go ahead.
Pumping his own show. No, it's okay. I just want to make sure Tony gets the proper credit for. He does a fantastic job with the news. Don't get me wrong.
And you were going to say but
there's a possibility of some sideshow stuff coming.
Oh, there's sideshow stuff coming.
I'm working on some stuff.
Are you working on some stuff?
We'll see. Mr. Ostertag McSpoonigan and I have been spending a little time on Skype lately. So
I know you have.
There may or may not be some sideshow stuff coming. We'll see.
And there's there's 2 problems with that. One, I'm concerned that your sideshow will be better than my show.
Doubt it, but live your dreams.
And 2, you guys have been talking without me.
Well, do you want me to call you next time we're on?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a call.
All right, I'll be busy.
But I get you have to be the co-host on that one. That is kind of a
all right
handoff.
Oh man, I can hardly wait. All right, that's it. Buy the ProtoThrottle. Scott, stop worrying. See ya.
Come to Kansas City.
Come to Kansas City, Scott. Absolutely. All right, see ya. Bye.
Bye.
I got an old coat for a pillow, and the earth was last night's bed. I don't know where I'm going, only God knows where I've been. I'm a devil on the run, I'm a six-gun lover, I'm a candle in the wind. When you're brought into this world,
It's another Lincoln Homer.